This is the English version of my video on 10 study tips how to learn Swedish or any other language that you might be studying. Number 1, listen a lot. Listen to podcasts, music, watch movies, watch series. Listen to something in Swedish every day for at least 15 minutes. And when you're listening, pay attention to the pronunciation, the intonation, the melody. Can you hear any words that you understand? You don't have to understand everything perfectly. The most important thing is to listen regularly and don't give up, because the more you listen, the more you will understand. If you don't have time, you can actually listen while you're cooking or cleaning or washing the dishes. So you can usually find 15 minutes, when you're doing something else, where you can put on something in Swedish in the background while you're doing something else. Yeah, because it's super important for learning to understand the language to actually listen regularly. Number 2, understand the general meaning. Don't focus too much on understanding every little word and every little preposition, because you will only get confused and you will lose a lot of time if you focus too much on the details. Yeah, instead, look at the body language and the context. Can you understand in general what these people are saying? Number 3, start mixing. So start writing your own sentences to practice. Use the verbs, the adjectives, and the nouns that you already know. And write simple sentences with a subject, verb, object, adverb of place, and an adverb of time. And then you can vary that structure by changing the sequence of the words. So you can put the adverb of place first, or you can put the adverb of time first. And you can also change the sentences to questions. But very important to produce your own sentences. So write. Number 4, vocabulary is the core of a language. The most important thing is to have a good vocabulary. So start learning new words from day 1. You can use flashcards, word cards, or games to study. You can, for example, create your own memory games. Just use your imagination to find creative ways to learn vocabulary. You can also study words with an app called Quizlet. They have a lot of flashcards and games, and you can actually find me on Quizlet. I'm teacher Alex, and I have a lot of flashcards for level A1 to B2 in Swedish. Another thing you can do is put up post-it notes at home with different words that you want to learn. So for example, you can put post-it notes on the mirror in the bathroom so you can revise vocabulary while you're brushing your teeth, for example. Please write your own tips in the comments. How do you learn new vocabulary? Number 5, imitate the Swedes. Yeah, or imitate the native speakers. Observe how Swedish people move their mouths when they speak. Like, how do they shape their mouth to say, for example, vowels like å, ä, or ö. And then practice in front of a mirror. So observe your own face. Like, how do you move your mouth when you're speaking? And do you move it the exact same way as a native speaker does? This could be a technique to help you if you have difficulties with pronunciation. So you observe your own lips and you compare it to a native speaker to see how they move their lips when they're pronouncing certain difficult sounds. Also listen to Swedish people in movies and in podcasts and try to imitate them. But of course, please don't imitate people that you see on the street. That might end badly. So do this at home alone. Number 6, vary your studies. So find different ways to study so you don't get bored. Yeah, you can, for example, use different games, like for example, Quizlet, like I mentioned. You can watch movies, listen to music, and read simple books in Swedish. And for example, one day you can focus on reading, then another day you can focus on writing, and then the third day you can focus on conversation. So focus on different things every day. Number 7, start speaking. Okay, just like you exercise your muscles in the gym, you also need to exercise your facial muscles when you're learning a new language, because it might actually be that your facial muscles are not used to making certain movements that you will need to make to form new sounds with your mouth. And I actually see this among my students. Some people really struggle with making certain vowel sounds, for example, because they're not used to, their face is not used to making that movement. So I actually see this a lot. So the way to exercise your facial muscles is by speaking. You don't need to speak perfectly. The most important thing is that you're trying and that the person who's listening can actually understand you. Yeah, and that you might not need perfect grammar to be able to do that. And the longer you wait, the more difficult it gets to start speaking. So start speaking as soon as you can. It's very, I also see this among my students that they get blocked because they wait too long to start speaking, and then it becomes such a big hurdle to overcome to actually start getting the words out that they just get completely blocked and they can't start speaking. So just throw yourself out there, and the worst thing that can happen is that maybe you will embarrass yourself a little bit, but it'll be worth it when you speak a new language. You can, for example, ask your classmates if they want to practice speaking Swedish with you. That might feel a bit more comfortable than speaking to strangers. Or if you live in Sweden, you can actually check if there's a language cafe in your city. A lot of cities have these language cafes where people meet up from different countries. They're all learning the new language together, so they want to practice speaking. So Google language cafe or språkcafé in the city you live in and see if they have it. Number 8, have a good structure. Yeah, so organize your studies, both your material and your time. So write a schedule for yourself. When are you going to do the homework? When are you going to listen? And when are you going to revise what you've learned so far? So organize your time. Organize your notes, your word cards, using different kinds of folders and files, maybe a little box for your word cards. And always give yourself some extra time every day just for revision. So for example, 15 minutes to revise grammar, 15 minutes to revise new vocabulary, for example. Yeah, so structure is very important when you're learning a new language. Number 9, be active in the classes. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't understand something, the chance is quite great that there are more people in the group that also don't understand you. You might feel like maybe you're the only one who doesn't get it, but I can promise you there are other people in the group who also don't get it, and they're thinking the same thing that you are right now. They don't want to ask because they feel embarrassed. So don't be afraid, don't be embarrassed. Ask the questions. You're doing it for your own good. You're doing it so that you can learn better and understand better. Take notes. Always have a pen and a notebook with you in class and take a lot of notes. So at least in my group, we are a team that support each other and we work together to learn Swedish together. And hopefully your class is the same. Number 10, work on the correct level. So this is super important. Use the language on the level that you are currently studying. I see this a lot. A lot of people try to translate directly from their own language to Swedish. But the issue with this is when you translate from a high level of one language to an A1 level or an A2 level of Swedish, the result becomes very strange sentences, to say the least. Because what happens is, if your level is down here in Swedish, say you have an A1, A2 level of Swedish, of course in your native language you have probably a C2 level or a native level, and that means that when you're writing sentences on a C1 level and then try to directly translate them into Swedish, but your level is only A1, A2 here, it means you're missing all this that is between C1 or C2, sorry, and A1, A2. You're missing all these words, these expression, and all this grammar to be able to perfectly translate the sentences. So don't overcomplicate your sentences. Use a simple language. Use a language that you are currently studying at. This might mean that in the beginning you kind of have to speak and write like a child, which is fine because you have to start at a basic level and then you will build on that level and become gradually more and more complex in your sentences. Also, Google Translate is not your friend. I say this all the time. It's basically, if you put a sentence in your own language into Google Translate, try to translate it to Swedish. There are so many little variables that Google Translate doesn't pick up on, like phrasal verbs, for example, expressions, different kind of tenses or changes in the grammar structure. And that doesn't translate well in Google Translate. I guarantee you your teacher can always tell when you have used Google Translate because the text comes out very, very strange usually. I definitely can tell when my students use Google Translate. So please use your own beautiful brain to create sentences. And actually, did you know that you can actually prevent dementia by learning a new language as an adult? There are studies that show that it can help with your cognitive brain function if you're learning a language by consistently challenging and expanding the mind. So yeah, learning a new language is actually a great idea as an adult. But of course, it means you have to use, again, your beautiful brain and not Google Translate. Thank you for watching.